Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We offer stories of infidelity, betrayal, and redemption. Please like and subscribe. Cheers. Now, on to today's story. What kind of man sleeps with another man's wife? Black question mark, black question mark, black question mark. It's a question I've struggled with daily, since D-Day, for 3 years now. How would you answer? Rant. I've thought of them all, the adjectives that could describe them. Narcissistic, selfish, egomaniacal, sense of entitlement, weak, pathetic, lacking honor. The list goes on. I often think about what I'd do, or say, if I had the opportunity to confront him. How I'd ask him that question, then answer it for him, before he had the chance to fill in that awkward silent space. I'd watch the shame and humiliation wash over his face, or was that pride and hubris? Infuriates me. How would you answer that question, in that setting? Dude. You can fantasize about your confrontation and the shame and humiliation he would feel. But in reality he would just say, because I wanted to and I don't care about your feelings, and move on. You're only hurting yourself by replaying situations where you try to force closure from people who don't care. Gotta let it go and just be happy that you have a better conscience than these people, lol. You need to stop torturing yourself. There are many men out there who never respect boundaries, who love the pursuit and are good at it, who will test women's boundaries, and who would never say no to sex. Sure, they are egotistical, selfish ducks, but that's the world we live in. The blame for cheating lies squarely on the cheater, in your case, your wife, and not the random dude she happened to cheat with. If he had never been born, it would have simply been someone else. So well said. Yeah, I blame both the cheater and any known affair partner as well, but the cheater is the one to blame first and foremost. The egotistical scum that enjoy banging with married people like some sort of game just really makes my blood boil. Yeah, no. The man who knew she was married is at fault also. Not just the cheating spouse. Any moral person knows you don't have sex with someone else's spouse. Same can be asked, what kind of woman sleeps with another woman's husband? What kind of man leaves his wife home and goes off to screw another? We really can't let these questions bother us. It will eat us up. We got to push forward. It sucks, but the only way is through. People just don't give a shit about whether someone is married or not, or has a partner. The fact that someone has a wife or a husband just does not matter to them, as long as both parties are up for it. It's going to happen. I believe you are correct. The best answer is indifferent. APs absolve themselves of any wrongdoing because their wayward partner's marriage is the wayward's concern. Interestingly, I've known APs that believed that they are helping a wayward marriage by providing what the wayward needs to be content at home. When my wife's AP wrote an email to me sometime later and apologized, I told her that it was a mercy killing of a bad marriage and she did me a favor. And I bloody well meant it. My ex-wife was a horror story. Your wife cheated on you with another woman? You sound surprised. Cheaters come in all kinds. Was just looking for clarification. Actually, there are men that very much go after married women on purpose. Why? Because they're easier than single women, and normally offer more fun with no strings attached sex and no expectation of full-time commitment. The predator is only competing with the husband. She's heard all her husband's stories and jokes. Her husband gets her flowers because he's supposed to get her flowers, so it no longer means much to her, so on, and so on. The married woman is bored/midlife. The woman has matured both sexually and in confidence. She may not start off intending to cheat, but if the predator can establish an emotional connection, that's where it begins. It may take a long time, or it may escalate very quickly. And when it escalates, she's in the affair fog, and that is very hard for a husband to compete with. And to keep those validation/new relationship energy feelings going, women will go much further sexually than they're willing to with their husbands. And predators totally take advantage of this, since this is very fun for the predator. He gets all of her fun with no responsibility. The poor husband, if he ever finds out, will later be crushed to find out what she was willing to do for AP, that she always refused her husband. This happens all the time. The target being married absolutely matters to some. There are women that do the same, but generally with different motives. They'll seek committed partners on purpose because they really don't want to split with their family, and they're looking for someone that isn't likely to get attached to them in a way that threatens their existing marriage. I entertained guys in relationships even as a single woman because it felt naughty, exciting, and I was afraid of commitment. I did eventually grow up, but the thrill of it was a big one for me. Bravo. And, to add to the why? My 2 cents. Depending on your status, or even where you currently are in life, financially, or experientially, you may choose to err on the side of caution when opening yourself up to convenient intimacy, by rarely associating yourself with partners who don't have something to lose. I agree. More and more people are doing this. It seems easy, it is. Phones, computers, DMs, a multitude of messaging methods, companies that are specifically designed for cheaters, others give them permission by being a cover story for the cheaters, etc. It's a sad world we're living in. P.S. An ex cheated on his Japanese wife. My ex dated her after we amicably broke up. I encouraged him to date this little Japanese cutie. Well, they eventually married. Then he cheated on her with another American teacher. His Japanese wife found out about their affair and demanded a divorce. Also, in Japan you can sue the other party for damages. It's one lump sum. She settled with her husband and the mistress. Good idea here? Or, what kind of woman would give another man a chance to be intimate with her while she's married? There's truly no significant difference between them. Cheaters are not a monolith. There is a study that's been replicated many times over where a beautiful woman asks random men to come home with her. The overwhelming majority of men, married or not, go with her. The same study is done using an attractive male and asking women to go home with him. The overwhelming majority do not. There are a number of reasons for this behavior, even going back to our primitive instinct. But beyond blaming men for this behavior, you should equally ask why a married woman would engage in this behavior. The reasons and answers to human behavior are deep and complex, and easy answers are usually not the whole story. An unhappy wife. Maybe things in the bedroom only happen once a month or less. A bored wife dying for a little excitement. I spoke to my ex and we both agree that not everyone will cheat, but sometimes everything just lines up perfectly. She got into a fight with husband. She is feeling ugly and unloved, and a silver-tongued devil walks up and says all the right things. If someone cheats when they're unhappy, they don't need to be in a relationship. Relationships are full of unhappiness and down times. It's the heart of what love is all about. If you don't love the person enough to be faithful in the for worse of it, you don't need to settle down with them. Or with anyone. Love isn't about the good times, it's about the bad times. So if you can't picture every terrible scenario and say, I'd be faithful, just stay single. But that wouldn't be any fun for a lot of people, lol. That is true, but women want to have the next up on deck before leaving. Oh yeah, for sure. I understand the reality of it. Just hate that it's that way. Lol, but yeah, some people are afraid to leave one relationship without having a next one to go into. I asked my ex over 12 years ago, and there are those that would never cheat, those that will always cheat, but we both believe the biggest group are ones that were at the right place in the right mood with the right person with the right circumstances. In my early 20s I cheated on girls, and I also cheated with wives, and honestly you could pick out the wives that were at the bar that wanted to have some fun. 1. They weren't regulars. 2. They dressed nicer than everyone else. 3. They usually arrived early 3 to 6 p.m. from work, and they were either alone or with just one wing woman. I bartended early nights, so I got to know them. Sounds really lonely. I drank a lot in my early 20s, too, though. Not the brightest crowd, But I always hope most people from back then grew up. I guess there's a time for all that, and it's usually when someone is young. I bet some of those same women are still in a bar, though, looking for attention. I always felt really bad for the 40-something women still hanging around a bar. Well, after that I ran into my childhood friend and fell in love. About 5 years later her personality started to change and she was having really crazy mood swings, getting violent with people over stupid things. Took her to the doctor, bipolar and manic depressive. And from there I was on a 5 years train to drug abuse, infidelity, several felony assaults and batteries, and ending in divorce and foreclosure for me, and drug detox and inpatient mental treatment. Not boring at all. So I ended up single, homeless, broke, lonely and unemployed and broken. Tell me about your childhood. I know you're joking, but by an odd coincidence I've been reading Freud's collection of essays called On Creativity and the Unconscious. Just the other night I got to the chapter titled A Special Type of Choice of Object Made by Men, in which he describes 3 types of men and the women they choose. Type number 1 he calls the need for an injured third party. This type of man is attracted to a woman because she belongs to another man. In fact, when given the choice between an unattached woman and an attached woman, married, engaged, etc., this type will always pick the attached woman. Of course, being Freud, he theorizes this impulse, like any distorted sexual impulse, originates in some kind of disturbance to normal psychological development during childhood. Don't know if it applies in all cases, but I definitely found it interesting in light of what I read here every day. Base urges coupled with opportunity. That's all it takes. That, and married women are likely to be discreet about the whole thing, making them a safer bet. Safer until the husband finds out, as my retired cop friend would say. As a homicide investigator, he's written up reports on many a dead AP. They never publish that information. If it gets out, it's usually only by word of mouth. There have been many acts of violence that are the result of infidelity. The problem is that in discussing it, many could perceive it as glorification. I took a criminal justice class many years ago, and had to go to psychology sources to get data related to this motive. Sometimes it's a bit more nuanced. The wayward will groom the potential AP for a long time before making a move/demonstrating availability. They will give the potential AP a number of justifications for why it's okay to cheat with them. The marriage is a sham, they never go out, dead bedroom, fallen out of love, abusive, ignores them, whatever. With the full armory of justifications, the AP believes the lies they've been told, and this solidifies that what they are doing is not too bad because the marriage is already bad and likely soon to be over. This is why confronting an AP and asking such a question isn't a good idea. There won't be a stunned silence. They will tell you exactly why they thought it was okay, and it won't be gentle. They won't feel shame or humiliation, you will. They ducked your wife in ways that she wouldn't act with you. If you do get in first, then they'll just tell you afterwards, become violent, ending with you catching a charge, or take a legal route themselves as you are a threat. Everyone's behavior makes sense to themselves. The AP will defend their position by attacking yours. Never give AP any power or a stake in your relationship. If you must deal with them, then you let their partner know instead. This is true in most cases, but not all. My WHAP knew all about our reality. She wasn't groomed, she pursued, she cyberstalked when they went North Carolina, and so on. I confronted her online and she crumbled. It would have been satisfying if it hadn't filled me with pity, and then she still tried to contact him again. There were no excuses, just a spiral of shame, jealousy, sadness, act. It felt good for the first 30 seconds, then it felt sad and awkward. I don't recommend it. With the full armory of justifications, the AP believes the lies they've been told, and this solidifies that what they are doing is not too bad because the marriage is already bad and likely soon to be over. Yep, the excuses or just lack of any moral code whatsoever, they'll bang for whatever reason they find opportunistic. They won't feel shame or humiliation, you will. They ducked your wife in ways that she wouldn't act with you. Yeah, and that's the bit I imagine hurts the most. Why would a wife give it all she's got to some random dude who's done nothing to support her up to this point, yet be as basic, bland, or unwilling as possible in the bed for her own husband? The selfishness and lack of respect, love or appreciation is screwed up. There are some that truly believe that all is fair in love and war. Their wants are more important than anyone else's. There are others that just don't care. They are not cheating on you. It's not their problem. There are some that seek committed partners. That way they don't need to worry about being asked to commit themselves. In other cases they seek the married because it is evidence of someone who will commit to them. There are others that see this as a sport. Look who I banged, the more resistant the better. In most of these cases it is not about you at all. They didn't cheat on you, your partner did. Why do people cheat but say they love that person? Advice. Because cheaters are primarily two things, dishonest and selfish. My ex placed sex as the highest priority, the greatest proof of love, because he was deeply insecure. To him, my guy friends were only set apart from him because I wasn't sleeping with them. This may not apply to all cheaters, but I think my cheating ex at least did not know what love really was. So when he said he loved me, he really meant he valued that I wanted to sleep with him and thus made him feel special. Sad, really. This. Because they are broken. Because they lost hope. Because they don't love themselves. Because they are afraid. Because they don't think they deserve to be loved. Because they are afraid of losing the one they love. Because they don't know how to deal with the pain they feel inside. Because they don't hold things inside when they should open up. Because they don't know what their self-worth is. Because when they lose hope and hold in their pain they start to break, they become selfish, they seek ways to stop their pain, they look for ways to validate themselves, they become self-absorbed, their minds and souls start to split. Because they are cowards. Some cheaters don't want to hurt the ones they love, but they lose themselves along the way. When they wake up they can't believe what they did, who they become, and they selfishly hurt the one they cared for the most. They will spend years hating themselves and reflecting on what they did to the one they loved. If a cheater actually loved the one they claimed to have loved, they deserve the hell they will go through. The one they cheated on didn't deserve what was done to them, and the cheater will have to live with that as well. I'm sorry this happened to you. If it helps, the person who hurt you may have not done it with any cruel intentions. It's like being under a spell. But this does excuse them in any way, and they need to face the punishment of their actions or there is no chance for them. You were hurt not because of anything to do with who you are. You were just unfortunate to care about someone who was broken inside. This might be true in some cases. Not all cheaters are broken inside. Some are just selfish. However, what does I love you means, not everyone has the same conception of love. So when someone say I love you, it might be because the pain you feel is too strong for it not to be the result of love, or because they think it is what you want to hear, or maybe because they are afraid of losing you. There is no real answer to this question. Everyone is different. This is exactly true. Hurt people hurt people. This is a very thoughtful response, and a brave one considering where it's being posted. And I dare say it sounds like it comes from experience. If I'm wrong, please forgive me, but if I'm right, thank you for your insight. I wrote something on here that I stand by, but what you wrote does resonate with me. My post was from the perspective of what I felt on D-Day, and on that day there was nothing but pain and rage. But something you said reminded me of a conversation we had days later once my emotions had cooled to the point I could talk to her somewhat civilly. I wanted to know why. I needed to know why, and still do to a degree, as I said in my post. Your post reminded me of something she said. She said that she didn't think she deserved me, which was ludicrous, and in a way she thought she did what she did to prove it. She said she never loved her AP, and neither of them planned on leaving their spouses. He was married with young children. She said she hated it from the moment it happened, which I have reason to believe based on her actions the day it happened and those that followed. I would later learn that she was crying so hard afterwards that her AP was afraid for her to leave the hotel until she got herself together. She left the hotel and drove straight to my place of work. I worked 3 p to 11 p intense days. I remember that night well. She showed up looking like she'd seen a ghost. My initial thought was that something had happened to someone in our family. I was sure she had been crying, but she denied it. I would later learn that she sat in the parking lot for an hour getting control of herself. I worked at a factory then and visitors during the shift were very rare. She told me that she just had to see me and that she loved me. As strange as this sounds, she often did things out of the blue to show me she loved me, as I did with her, so I just took it for her being her. I walked back to my job station thinking I was the luckiest man in the world. She said she meant to tell me that night, but couldn't bring herself to do it. D-Day would come a month or so later. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to spin a yarn here. Your post brought back some things I'd long forgotten. But it made me think of some of the things that would come out in the weeks following D-Day. The bottom line is I appreciate what you wrote. God bless. Because cheaters are liars. I legitimately do not think this is true. People who cheat are using cheating as an unhealthy coping mechanism for something in their life that causes them distress, and lack the tools to handle it responsibly. In the end, they're capable of love, but they often either have a warped perspective of love, or cannot put that love above their compulsions. Does it make cheating okay? No. Does it excuse cheating? No. But the same way dismissing their actions as they just lied doesn't truly define them, it doesn't benefit you either. Because if you can't understand how they think or won't take the time to break down what led them to do what they did, how will you have a thorough understanding of how to avoid it for the next relationship? How do you keep yourself from being played or blindsided? By understanding. By taking the time to understand. Not so you can give them forgiveness, BC it's yours to give at your pleasure, but so you can use what you get from that experience to protect yourself. I for the most part completely believe this is true in lots of circumstances, not in all. What a lot of people tend to get hung up on about love is their definition and the way they show they love someone. Everyone shows love in their own ways. And no, cheating is by no way a way of showing that love, but just because someone does cheat, it does not mean they don't love you. And even if they do love you and they cheat on you, it is ultimately up to you on how you choose to handle that. You can leave, you can be angry, you can be sad, you can stay and try to work things out, you can forgive, you can choose to never forgive, etc. I for the most part completely believe this is true in lots of circumstances, not in all. Totally. I think nothing is uniform. People don't ever fully fit into any schema, by nature. You say this like it debunks my point when it actually echoes it. I'm not saying you need to so much as breathe in the same room as them. I'm saying that not taking the time to understand how someone comes to cheat is depriving yourself of understanding that may protect you. A cheater can love you, but that doesn't give them any right to hurt you. Hell, your parents can abuse you and still love you. It doesn't mean they deserve a place in your life just because they're your parents, or that they love you. I totally agree with this as well. If I stop at every person who hurts me or offends me and try to understand his motives and why he did that, it will not change the action first and it will not help me recover. This is objectively untrue. The vast majority of people who come here want to understand, specifically will help them get past their betrayals. Additionally, you are referencing interactions with people who come and go. I'm talking about interactions with people you'd be interested in dating. Understanding how people you date can project generic signs of being a cheater, or if they have issues that aren't facing or are actively solving that could lead to cheating, is a massive leg up in the dating game. I was single for one year after a split with my now fiancé, unrelated to infidelity, and I met 3 women. 2 showed signs they were a cheater, and I actually caught one in a lie that exposed a boyfriend that was on the way out of her life. More like she was interested in monkey branching with me. So no, studying the methods of randoms who hurt you isn't pertinent, but even that is useful in knowing how to avoid people like them that will happily take advantage of you. Understanding the tells in a potential life partner? That could literally save you a decade you could have spent with someone who wasn't on the track to hurt you/abuse your trust. Even your analogy, alone from the fact it isn't necessarily true, isn't true. That said, I never said you should spend time with them, because if they hurt you I 100% advocate leaving every time. I'm saying knowing why they did it, understanding how they think and view the world, and how personal issues can manifest as dysfunction can help you protect yourself. That's it. Never say take your wayward for breakfast and write their biography. You are attributing more than I said to what I said. Edit, you downvoted 15s after I posted. You're not even reading what I'm saying and are strawmanning because you're unable to look past your perspective or your hurt, and are taking some personal offense to my commentary because it makes you feel negatively about yourself. Maybe reflect on that if this pisses you off so much. I'm ignoring you. Just letting you know, I knew I'd have to sort by controversy to get a real answer that wasn't cheaters are disgusting scum. Thank you for giving and elaborating on a real answer. Adult children of emotionally immature parents, not directly related, but an exceptionally good baseline for understanding how trauma and dysfunction can be learned/taught. It didn't start with you. Not just friends. Post-infidelity stress disorder. I have more if you'd like my full library. And general observation. It usually comes from somewhere they aren't managing responsibly and they cheat as a way to cope. The reason they lash out and come up with the BS excuses is to cover for that part of themselves they aren't willing to change. These things can warp their perspective of love, or overshadow their ability to put another first, but it doesn't flat out remove that part of their brain. Whether it's stress, an inability to let go of situations without closure, an ever-increasing need for attention, a constant need for validation, trauma, BPD, schizophrenia, etc. If they took the steps to handle those issues, or at least reached out for help, most of us wouldn't be here. The entire point of my comment is that dismissing them as unable to love or understand love doesn't grant you the understanding or perspective to look out for, avoid, or prevent infidelity in the future. People are just flat out more nuanced than that, awful people or not. When my therapist and my friends ask me why I feel so much empathy for my WH 6 weeks after D-Day, without having experienced this before and without having read any of the books listed above yet, though I do have a few and plan on reading them when I'm ready, it's because of exactly what you've said here. Intuitively, I know that he had an affair to cope with his bottled up, untreated and unmedicated and hidden from me for years, PTSD, bipolar disorder, and major depressive disorder. Instead of turning to me for help, he sought external validation because that was easier, that would postpone having to actually face the root of his problems. Maybe it didn't start out as a conscious choice, but at some point, he chose to continue down that path, when that friendship of his turned into an EA and then again when it turned physical. Does that make the cheating okay? Nope. It does not excuse his behavior, it explains it, it gives it context and nuance, but that does not make it okay. Understanding how he ended up on this path, strangely enough allows me to have more empathy for myself. Yes, the faults in our marriage were half my fault, it was 50-50, I can acknowledge and own that, but the affair? That was 100% him. I did not point a gun at him and force him on that path. That was his choice. It was, in fact, a series of choices that he made, to stay on that path, to continue to cope with his issues in an unhealthy way, to continue to lie to me and deceive me. The weirdest part about this empathy is that I still haven't reached the anger phase. I should be angry, furious, but I just feel defeated, devastated. And I'm so tired. And holy shit, I just wish he'd go to ducking therapy and finally take care of his mental health, not just for his sake, but for anyone else unfortunate enough to have a relationship with him. I think you have asked the golden question. My D-Day was 35 years ago, so I've had a lot of time to think about that question. I still can't answer it with any degree of certainty. In fact, that's one of the biggest reasons I check in on this sub. I'm hoping some wayward spouse will explain it in a way that makes sense to me. So far, despite reading tons of the stories here, none have. At this point, that question, and a couple of others related to it, are the only unresolved issues I still have. My memory of D-Day is strange. Some of it is burned into my brain with crystal clarity, while some of it is a blur. This isn't an age thing. It's quite normal when rage, agony, incredulousness and shock are thrust upon you in the space of 30 seconds. But I remember that she must have told me she loved me 1,000 times over the course of that evening, and every time she said it, it pissed me off even more. It didn't make sense. I'm standing across from a person who has just gutted me and hurt me in the worst way anyone ever has, before or since, and they are telling me they love me. And the CPU in my brain is rejecting this data. See Aristotle's law of non-contradiction. Two contradicting philosophies cannot both be true at the same time. I love you input/output error. When you love someone, you care for them, protect them, respect them. You have their back in all things. If you truly love someone, it should be impossible for you to intentionally destroy them. Here's a couple of others from the Cheetah's Greatest Hits album. It didn't mean anything input/output error. Oh, so you destroyed me personally and our marriage in general for nothing. Good to know. You are the only one I want input/output error. Obviously not, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. It was a mistake input/output error. No. You didn't trip and fall onto his penis. This was a deliberate choice and an aggressive act. See, I love you. And the granddaddy of them all and my personal favorite, I don't know how/why I did it. Input/output error. Yes, you do. You had an itch and decided to scratch it, knowing full well the potential consequences, but you didn't care, which makes your I love yous null and void and the whole thing starts over again. Good luck on finding a satisfactory answer to your question. If you do, please post it. God bless. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Please comment, like and subscribe. Cheers. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are.